Hello everyone and welcome to 5-Minute German. Today we will learn what are the different forms of an adjective, which is also called Steigerung des Adjektives in German. By the end of the video, you will learn what are the different forms of an adjective in German and why we use them. And you will be able to make adjective forms with different adjectives. So let me give you an outline of what will we learn today. So first of all, I will explain to you what is an adjective. After that, we will look at the different adjective forms and how you can make them. These are the positive form, the comparative form, and the superlative form. After that, we will do a comparison of forms so that you can see them side by side. And then at the end, I will also tell you about some exceptions. For example, how do we make these forms for the irregular verbs? So are you ready? Then let's get started. What is an adjective? An adjective is something which describes a noun. It can be a place, thing, name, etc. Let's take a look at some examples. Das Haus ist groß. The house is big. Der Himmel ist blau. The sky is blue. Das Auto ist schnell. The car is fast. In the first example, groß and big, these describe the house. So these are adjectives. In the second example, der Himmel ist blau. Blau, or in English blue, is something which describes the sky. So this is the adjective over here. And in the last one, yes, I know, you guessed it, schnell or fast is the adjective, as this describes das Auto or the car. One thing to remember over here, that in German, whenever we write the adjective, the first letter is always small. As you see over here with groß, the G is small, with blau, the B is small, and with schnell, the S at the start is also small. Now what are the different adjective forms, or in German, Adjektive steigern? So why do we need them? We need these adjective forms to compare things with one another. Let's take an example. So here's a teacup. We can say, Die Tasse ist klein. The cup is small. This is the positive form. This is similar to the adjective forms that we saw before. Here's another cup which is smaller than the first one. So we say, Die Tasse ist kleiner. The cup is smaller. And this is the comparative form. Now we have a third cup over here, which is the smallest among the three. So we can say, Die Tasse ist am kleinsten. The cup is the smallest, and this is the superlative form. Don't worry, I will explain them in more detail as we follow along in this video. So let's first of all take a look at the positive form. I also like to call it the base form, and I will tell you why. So the positive form, it describes the noun, such as the place, thing, or person, etc. It is used to build the comparative and superlative forms. So we use this form to further build up these other forms. All the adjectives that we saw in the previous examples, all of them are in the positive form. Groß, blau, schnell, these are all positive forms. Now let's take a look at the comparative form. This is where it gets interesting. So what is the comparative form? The comparative form is used to compare two things. In English, we make the comparative form by adding E and R to the end of the adjective. For example, small in the comparative form becomes smaller. What about German? How do we make comparative in German? So the rule to make the comparative in German is that we have the adjective and we add ER at the end of the adjective, similar to English. So this means that the adjective klein will become kleiner, schnell will become schneller, and hell, which is bright, becomes heller. See, not so difficult. Now let's take some more examples. We have this dog over here and we have the adjective klein. So we will say, Der Hund ist kleiner. The dog is smaller. Kleiner over here is the comparative form. We have this elephant, we use groß as adjective, so the sentence will be, Der Elephant ist größer. The elephant is bigger. Again, größer is the comparative form. The third one is schnell for the car, we say das Auto ist schneller, the car is faster. So tell me what is the comparative form? Yes, you guessed it right, it's schneller. Great, let's move on. There is one important thing that you have to remember. I don't know if you saw it in the previous examples, but let me explain it here. So when we make the comparative, there are some letters which also change. These are A, which becomes A umlaut, O becomes O umlaut, and U becomes U umlaut. Let's see this in practice. So an example will be alt, which means old, will become älter and not alter. Gross will become grosser, as we saw also in the examples before. And gesund, which means healthy, will become gesunder. So you see the U was replaced by U umlaut. Now let's take a look at the superlative form. Now the superlative form is used to compare with all things in a group. The comparative was to compare only two things, but superlative is to compare with everything which is in a specific group. Let's understand this with an example first. I can say that mein Auto ist am schnellsten. My car is the fastest. So you see over here, I am saying that my car is the fastest, and with that I compare it with all other cars. So for this reason we use superlative. So how is it formed? Well, there are two ways. Let's first look at the first rule, or the rule 1 to build superlative. I also say that this is the easy way because we don't need any article, der, die, das. And I know learning the articles is always a pain and it's difficult to remember. So let's see how we use this rule. So we build the superlative by using which is am. Then we have the adjective, and at the end of the adjective we add sten or esten, and with this you can build a superlative. Let's take an example. Mein Auto ist schnell, my car is fast. This is the sentence with the positive form. In superlative it will become mein Auto ist am schnellsten. So you see came before the adjective and sten came at the end. So my car is the fastest. Another example will be Mathematik ist schwierig. Mathematics is hard. Yeah, I know it is. And in superlative it will become Mathematik ist am schwierigsten. Mathematics is the hardest. Yeah, that's also not false, right? So Mathematik ist am schwierigsten. Mathematics is the hardest. So you see over here we again added sten at the end and am before the adjective. Now let's take a look at the second way of how to build superlative, and this is with article. So we need the article over here. So the rule for this is that we use the article, which is der, die, das, before the adjective. Then we have the adjective, and at the end of the adjective you will add ste or este. Let's take the previous example again. Mein Auto ist schnell, my car is fast. It will become mein Auto ist das schnellste Auto. My car is the fastest car. The mathematics example will be Mathematik ist schwierig. It will become Mathematik ist das schwierigste Fach. Mathematics is the hardest subject. And we will use the article for the noun. And you might have also noticed that we have added the nouns over here. So you have to add the noun for clarity when using this rule to build the superlative. So in my opinion, it is easier to use rule 1 because there's less chance of a mistake happening. So if you have the choice when in the exam, then it is better to use rule 1. Now, similar to the comparative form, there are also the letters which change when we use the superlative form, and these are the same. A which becomes A umlaut, O which becomes O umlaut, and U which becomes U umlaut. Examples for these are lang, which means long, it becomes am längsten in superlative. Gross becomes am größten, and kurz becomes am kürzesten. So you see over here we have used esten at the end, because if we did not add the extra e, it would have been very difficult to pronounce this. So that's why we use an extra e in these cases. Now let's compare all the forms side by side to see what are the differences. So the first adjective is laut, which means loud. In comparative, it will become lauter, and in superlative, it will become am lautesten, or article, which is der, die, das, and then lauteste. Schnell becomes schneller in comparative form. In superlative, it becomes am schnellsten, or we use the article and then schnellste. Schön becomes schöner in comparative, am schönsten in superlative, or article and then schönste. Gross becomes grosser in comparative and am größten or größte in superlative. Now there are some exceptions which don't follow the rules that I mentioned before, and this is in the case of irregular verbs. I will give you some examples of the most common irregular verbs. So the first one is gern, lieber, am liebsten, which means gladly, preferably, and most preferred. So gern is the positive form or base form. It did not become gerner in comparative, rather it became lieber, and in superlative it did not become am gernsten, rather it became am liebsten. Similarly, viel, which is the base form, which means a lot, will become mehr in comparative form, and am meisten, the most, in superlative form. Gut will become besser and am besten. So good, better, the best. Then hoch will become höher, am höchsten, which is high, higher, highest. And the last one, nah, will become näher, am nächsten, close, closer, closest. So unfortunately, you don't have any other option than to memorize them. However, the good news is that these adjectives are used very frequently in daily life, so you will come across them and you will memorize them easily. So now let's take a look at what we have learned and do a recap. So we learned that adjectives are used to describe nouns and always start with a small letter. There are three forms of adjectives, which are positive, comparative, and superlative. The positive form is the base form, for example, schnell or klein, and it is used to build the comparative and superlative forms. The comparative form is to compare between two things, for example, schneller, and the superlative form is to compare with all things in a group, for example, am schnellsten. And for irregular verbs, we have to memorize the forms, for example, gut, besser, am besten. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the lesson. Great job, and thanks for sticking around, and you should be happy that you have learned about adjective forms in German. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. I will link some important documents in the description below which can help you in learning German, such as the complete guideline for the A2.1 German course. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment box below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you in the next video.